Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. Today we're joined by Christof Wittig, CEO and founder of Hornet Networks. For those of you that aren't familiar with Hornet, it's a gay social networking app with 30 million diverse users with a heavy presence in Taiwan, Russia, Brazil, to name a few countries, and a growing user base in Europe and the US. Today we'll be getting to know Christof and how he started the company nearly 10 years ago, as well as chat a bit about his leadership style that inevitably helped him grow Hornet to a well-known brand in an otherwise crowded marketplace. And also a bit about Hornet's mission, especially in the context of today's social climate. And also, it is officially Pride Month, so I'm personally very excited to be speaking with you today, Christof. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me, Phil. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here, and also happy Pride Month to you and all our listeners and viewers. Happy LGBTQ Pride Month everywhere.
Yes, happy Pride, everyone. So yeah, let's jump into it a little bit. So if you want to give us a bit of an introduction about yourself and Hornet and your growth, your journey of growth as a business.
Absolutely happy to do so. So my background is I've been a software entrepreneur and now increasingly investor all my life. I came from much more boring entrepreneur and enterprise software, embedded software background. And I started Hornet in 2011, really as a side project, as a fun project. I felt the gay community needed an app that was better than, a pure hookup dating app, as, a well-known brand probably, is known for. I'm personally in a now 24 years relationship, and I want to connect to other members of our community, but without necessarily hooking up. So it was from the beginning a project of passion and love, and in some ways of giving back to the community. We didn't really know if there was a market for that, whether people would like it, whether it would monetize. But we just knew and still know to the very, very day that the world would be a better place if such a platform existed. So from the beginning, we bootstrapped and it operated extremely nimble. We only raised 1 million in seed money to build a company to exceed 1 million MAU, and then first break even in 2016 with a team of only 12 people.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Think so. So yeah, and the key components are we have a mission and a passion, very focused on a specific user and real problem. We're really very, very focused on product and data, and then there's a lot of patience and endurance to the mix, and that's kind of what got us started and got airborne.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, a lot of our customers are founders that the most prosperous ones are the ones that are creating a business based on their passion and not necessarily only thinking about how to make a quick buck. So that's refreshing to hear. And I want to come back to understand a little bit more about the mission as well. But in terms of you growing the business, what was your aha moment or any signal that told you something great was coming together?
Really, it's the connection to specific users, and this would be a very long account. But let's say I speak to a user in Iran that found out he's HIV positive and thinks he has to take his life. And you just give him that comfort and say, this is not the end of the world. Now, it's, of course, a very much bigger challenge in Iran than elsewhere. But, small little interactions of all kinds. Could be just a fun interaction, but it could be something as serious as I just mentioned. Those are the aha moments. You actually make a difference in a person's life. I think more on a bigger scale, like, bird's eye view, the one thing that I found amazing is the many volunteering contributors on Hornet that help make Hornet better in various markets, and they're the roots of our very, very large contributor community of over 100,000 people. They do moderation, they do beta testing, but they also become sport captains or health ambassadors. So there's a huge pool of goodwill, just like I originally was motivated to give back. of people who want to give back to the community, because they also knew what the community did for them, and it's about paying forward. And on an even more business scale answer to your question was that we had markets, or have markets, one by one, that completely tipped from that notion that a gay app has to be a hookup app into a gay app is a community app. So I'll give you 2 examples in Taiwan and Russia. You mentioned those countries. In Taiwan, for instance, we played a big role in helping to get same-sex marriage legalized in 2019, which is the first time that happened in Asia. So we did various initiatives around that. For instance, Taiwan is a very strong market. 1 in 100 Taiwanese is a monthly active user on Hornet. So we are a real force in that market, and we do change people's mind and opinion. But we can also organize, for instance, there were sit-ins in front of the parliament, and people were coming up with food and drinks to make sure those people who were demonstrating in front of the parliament for same-sex equality, same-sex marriage and equality, to sustain that rally. A different example is Russia, which is not the most LGBTQ friendly place on earth, as we all know, but Hornet is massive in Russia. For instance, and Russia also includes Chechnya, and we all heard about the terrible stories about being people systematically prosecuted, singled out, beaten up, if not outright murdered. And here, for instance, a lot of the community has helped to rescue and salvage these people. Mostly, of course, not all of them are Russians. On the ground is the community, but of course they need a operating system to get wired and connected without being entrapped by potential bad actors. And here Hornet played a big role, and that's actually featured in a new HBO documentary, which is very timely. It's called Welcome to Chechnya, and we are one of the partners mentioned there.
Wow. So congratulations on that. I mean, that's really, really compelling stories in both cases.
Yeah, so these are some examples, but in the end of the day, it's the one-on-one connections, a specific conversation I have with someone, and I made their day a little better, and that could help them, thinking about their mental health, their identity, many important things where community can be such a force for good and inclusion, and make people, just grow and also feel better about themselves in every respect.
And I think specifically with the mental health piece of it, I mean, that's always obviously been important to the LGBTQ community. I think now it's becoming also more accepted in general with the last year and everyone kind of being stuck at home with COVID. It's really great to see that mental health is being prioritized just more across the board. And hopefully, Hornet, you've kind of already positioned yourself to be a strong resource in that regard. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think it's very interesting and timely, just, ahead of Pride Month, GLAAD here in the United States published their first social media safety index and found out that 64% of LGBTQ people in the United States have experienced discrimination or harassment on the 5 big social networks: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. 64%. So that is a very large number. And it's actually, of all the minority groups, if you think about others like African Americans or Asian Americans, it's the one that has experienced more than any other of these minorities. So we often try to think about, haven't we achieved equality? Aren't we inclusive? The reality is, some have. I'm a very privileged person. I'm a cisgender, gay, white, male person in San Francisco, socioeconomically well off and healthy. But I'm an outlier in many ways, given to the largely overlooked other segments of the queer community. What does it mean, though, is because there is still this constant sort of, we have to edit ourselves for heteronormativity. We have to think about, can this entrap me in some bad way? And even if it doesn't, we always have to think about that. And as a result, all our market research has shown that LGBTQ people like, all things equal, to spend more time on their regular interest, like running or watching movies with other LGBTQ people, because there's this sort of, people don't question you or could question you, and it may be diffuse, but of course, if 64% of LGBTQ people in the United States have experienced harassment, that, you know, you're burned. You want to make sure you have a space where you're accepted just the way you are, and don't need to kind of set the stage or make sure that this is a safe space for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think any LGBTQ person can relate with that. That's really good to hear, and an important mission, and especially to have the brand tied to that aspect of community. I think it's priceless. So thanks for that, those comments. In terms of kind of switching gears a little bit to the business, and understanding your growth of the company, you know, what did you prioritize to ramp up? How did you identify what worked? I think you raised a Series A a few years ago. If you could speak a little bit about that, that would be awesome from, you know, a founder's point of view.
Awesome, sure. So as I mentioned, Hornet started as a side project while I was doing my daytime job originally, and in 2016 I decided to make it my full-time job. So that was a big step when we felt there was something going to it, but there's also much more to do, and we would need more focus and growth. So that was the big change in the company. We raised a $14 million Series A led by Ventec in 2016. And we grew our team from 12 to then 90 people. And our marketing budget went from $10,000 a year to $4 million a year. So quite a shift of gear, you could say. And we definitely accomplished a lot with this additional firepower, of course. We were able to gain a lot more users, brand awareness, and also build our revenue. But we also understood that a few things didn't quite work out as expected. So one thing is, of course, if you raise money, you know, it's all about, you know, cranking up, you know, super growth and so on. And we did a very marketing-driven or marketing-focused approach. So we spent a lot on marketing, basically, right? And it turned out that in some markets, and I'm speaking about countries, you know, we did focus our marketing efforts, and others we didn't do anything. Also a little bit kind of see what the lift was, all things equal. And sometimes the growth rates looked similar between the markets we were doing marketing and the ones we didn't do marketing. So that makes you ask, you know, how much does marketing really make a difference? And of course, marketing can be infinitely expensive. And so we switched we went deep into the analysis and found that, you know, maybe we have started marketing a little too early, as in our product at the time was still maybe too much, you know, too limited in kind of, you know, delivering, especially to new users, the idea that this is a community, you know, where, you know, they belong and they can express themselves. You know, people have made up their mind that the gay app should be a hookup app. And suddenly we kind of bait and switch on them. Hey, this is about community, right? So there was probably the product, like the experience wasn't quite in line with the marketing promise we did. So that is a danger, I think, because once you raise money, you just start marketing, right? But is your product really ready? But then the investors want you to go really, really hard and fast, and you have, you know, quarterly metrics. So we basically went back more to look at the behavioral cohorts of our users and see which users are actually the ones that are using the product like we want them, and focused just purely on having those users, even at the potential expense of churning other users away that would not adhere to the idea or, you know, how Hornet could be that digital home for the LGBT community. Sorry, this is a very long story, but, you know,
creating value for those users, right? Like,
right, and also having a clear understanding what you promise, what the job to be done is for those people, as opposed to also how do you experience it if you actually are dropped into the app. So we said, like, well, there's users who do it, but is a new user also done that? So we basically went to much more a product-led approach since especially 2018, and dialed back our marketing more or less to 0 cents. We still have 17,000 new user downloads, so the brand is a gift that keeps giving. But we basically focus on the new user and onboarding experience and creating that sort of conducive environment where people are willing to share, to open up, in some ways be vulnerable by showing who they really are rather than trying to adhere to some vanity, role models that may or may not be relevant and so on. So that's been very, very good for us. And we have tripled our, if you will, social network user behavior base 3 times in the last 2.5 years.
Wow, that's incredible. So the product to summarize, you kind of switched to more of a product first approach, dialed back on the marketing a little bit until you could create that sort of, well, what is the tipping point there? Is it kind of enough content to get those folks that you acquire engaged with the app? Like, how do you decide at what point you can start spending money on marketing again? We see a lot of similar lifestyle apps, things like that they can kind of more or less, sometimes they're free, they can charge a subscription, monthly, annual subscription, when they get to a certain tipping point of content. So what was that for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very, very close to get ready. We have, I think, we're 1.5 releases away, I would say, from cranking up marketing engine. We specifically have, and that during COVID, a lot of things have changed for us. One big driver for us was that people, were stuck at home mostly, right? And people said social distancing, but we really only need physical distancing while you actually want to be socially even closer, especially digital, right? So this need for actually having authentic social connections when, your favorite gay bar or your pride parade wasn't happening, the gay bar was closed, your Atlantis cruise didn't, sail. Where do you find that affirmative power that is the community? And this was really, really our moment. And we decided in 2020 to really lean into it and launch our version 7 with a heavy focus on video. And as you know, many video companies have had a great year in 2020, and that's also true for us. And that journey is nearly finished. We still have one thing to come, which comes very soon. And then we have another much bigger product update around something that is more pertaining to the United States.
I look forward to seeing that. And I think we have a promotional video for your 7.0 release queued up. So let me see if we can get that to play here. There we go.
Hey guys, it's Reese here, back with a brand new video. And today I'm going to be telling you the most LGBTQ friendly places in the world that you need to visit.
Today is a very beautiful day, so I hope you're out there and enjoying yourself.
This is Mariside, and in today's video we're gonna talk about fashion.
But who's right? Let's look at both sides.
And today, Hornet and I are gonna teach you some more gay Mexican history.
Good to talk to the team at Hornet. Hey, what's up?
It's the freedom of self-expression.
Pardon me?
Hi, Hornet. This is Naomi Smalls.
Herkese merhaba, ben de Hornet'teyim.
Salut Hornet.
Merhaba Hornet.
Yay Hornet.
Привет Hornet.
Hi Hornet.
Hi, Hornet.
Hola Hornet.
Hello, Hornet.
Merhaba Hornet.
Salut Hornet.
Hornet. Hornet.
Hornet.
Hornet. Hornet.
Love it.
Awesome.
Love it. That's a great video, and that's very, very exciting to come. And I do want to point out, like, you guys really are focused on community. It's a totally different experience, opening the Hornet app than other queer social networking apps where you open it and it's literally user contributed, news articles, things like that. So it's It's great. It's refreshing to see in this, especially in this sort of climate. I'd love to talk a little bit about your leadership practices. If you can walk me through a bit about your professional journey, what your path looked like, what kind of key lessons you learned along the way.
Happy to share. So I'm an old horse. I've been over 25 years with short breaks, a software entrepreneur in the role of founder and CEO. I started my career in Germany, where I'm originally from, sold my first company there in '99, and then moved in 2003 to the Bay Area. I attended business school there, perfect way to immerse myself into, the center of entrepreneurship and technology for sure. I did my first US startup from here, and then sold that in 2010 to a Japanese buyer. For a few years, then I dabbled in, should I be an investor? Should I be a hired CEO? But that nothing really, trumped, building my own company. So Hornet was on the side already. And then it was natural for me to kind of, quote unquote, return or come to Hornet full time in 2016, which, big picture is my third company.
Gotcha. And then is there any advice that you can give other founders or professionals on that sort of entrepreneurial track?
Sure. It sounds very cheesy when I say that, but it's really follow your heart, and, build what you want to see becoming a reality. And that is the paramount objective. I personally would give you that advice and take it with a grain of salt, but don't try to build something that investors crave for. Never, ever. You may fail, because you see something that may not happen. But first of all, it's the only way to be authentic and take advantage of your authentic strengths, and be seen as a leader with a mission and passion. And this is I do believe is a leadership that attracts the best and the brightest who want to work for you, rather than just for a big paycheck. There's nothing wrong with a big paycheck, but if people only come for big paychecks, I guess some people make money, but I don't necessarily then go home in the end of the day and say, well, we made just a lot of money, but didn't leave the world in a better shape than we found it. So that's just me.
Those people are more likely to then leave for bigger paychecks as well. So I think that connection with the cause is really what's important.
Yeah, and it may take longer, right? So one thing you have no control over as an entrepreneur is timing. You may have the right idea, but it's either too early or too late to market, and that's fine. That's a lottery you're playing. In general, though, it's not a sprint. Entrepreneurship, to me at least, is an endurance run, and that is my other big passion. Is I'm a mediocre athlete. I'm a runner and a cyclist, and also a triathlete. I started just running my first marathon in 2010, finished my first half marathon 2017, half Ironman 2017, and this January I did a 100K ultra trail run. So that's 66 miles with a couple of 5,000 of feet of elevation on the way. So that doesn't mean there's not great sprinters, and they're really amazing. But generally, what I learned in business school from my entrepreneurship professor, Mark Leslie, was it always costs more and lasts longer. So here you just saved yourself a couple of $100,000 on tuition. You just gotta have a certain high tolerance for pain, because it's never gonna be plain sailing. It will always take longer, and it always costs more than you think.
I only ran a 50K ultra trail marathon. So
here you go. Great. Painful, huh?
Yeah, very. I'm completely joking about that.
Oh, you did? Okay, I thought you could relate to the.
No. I get as far as the stationary bike in my living room.
Awesome. Also good. Everyone competes against themselves and their inner demons.
You mentioned Strava in our preparation when we were speaking before. Is that an example of community as well, an integration with Strava? And maybe you can talk about that for people that might not be familiar.
Yeah, so Strava is an app for the athlete community. Started with cycling and also very big in running and now many other sports. For me, it's the perfect example actually of a technology-enabled community, because In fact, every morning before I, do any other social networking, I fire up Strava, I fire up Hornet, and get a bit of a dose of love and belonging, because it's just so positive. I get kudos on Strava specifically, or I see what other people are running. I get inspired where to run or where to cycle, and it's just so great. And then, I'm mentally robust enough to open Facebook or worse, Twitter, which is just full of, I don't know, it's road rage, it's online rage. I'm sure there's words for it. I'm actually not, I just have to check it out every once, but it always it pulls me down, and it's horrible. So as it happens, Strava CEO Mark Gainey has taught me a lot on the principles I described before, including the absolute commitment to user experience. They also were very slow and careful about raising VC money and from whom, not dabbling too much in advertising revenue, but being focused on users. So a lot of principles that we have adopted, that helps me. And of course, the common denominator is also endurance, right? In fact, Strava originally started in 1996. They did a big pivot, and then they started again in 2005. So they worked over 25 years on this. Yeah. So clearly the endurance gene is running deep also at Strava. So, and last year in the, 25th year in this mission, they doubled their user base and revenue. So long time doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Sometimes it just takes a little longer. So I think there's a couple of important lessons that inspired me and also give me confidence, that sometimes a setback is just a setback, but it's not the end of the story.
Yeah. You learn important lessons from the failures just as much as the successes. Well, Christof, thanks a lot for joining today. I think this was an awesome conversation. Again, happy Pride Month. I personally look forward to seeing the growth for Hornet for the rest of the year, and the launch of 7.0 and all the exciting stuff to come. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Happy Pride to all also our viewers and listeners. Thank you very much.
Yes, happy Pride to everyone.